Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody this afternoon to our session on filmmaking, which is storytelling in the digital age, with Trevor Rogers. Trevor is the Director of Outreach and producer of NGP Video Production Services and Equipment Rental. And I know he has a great crew that's been working very diligently to provide us with this great training. And so I'm going to turn it over to Trevor, and thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everybody. I am Trevor Rogers. I'm the Director of Outreach here at NGP. NGP is primarily a video and film equipment rental house, and so it's our job to help outfit many of the major feature films, commercials, TV productions, reality TV shows, music videos, you name it. If there's something that needs a camera and some lights, we're going to be the ones that often outfit that production. So I'm very happy that you guys took the time to check us out today. We're going to go through kind of a full lighting demonstration as well as talking about the ins and outs of some of the cameras that we use here in the cinema world. As you can see in the background behind me, this is not a studio space. This is actually just a part of our warehouse. And one of the fun things about utilizing a space like this is it presents its own challenges in actually creating it into a usable shooting space. And so we're actually gonna be going through that kind of step-by-step today. I'm gonna be joined by my friend and colleague, Mr. John Shriock. John Shriock is a local key grip and gaffer. And for those that aren't familiar with what those terms are, a key grip is in charge of kind of building all of the rigging and shaping tools that we use to modify light, to hold things in place. They're basically the Lego builders of set on a film set. And also, he is a film gaffer, which means he controls the lighting and electric department. So all of the power it takes to make a movie, he manages all of that as well as handling all of the lights. So John has over 25 years of experience both here and abroad, working on numerous productions, you know, many of the larger feature films that have come through our state, and as well as some bigger titles that have been filmed all across the country. So we're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff, and he's going to really actually kind of take it over to be able to break down all of what we're doing with lighting. What we want to really be able to achieve today is we're going to show you guys a little bit of what our world is like and what, you know, kind of to what scale, what possibilities are out there. We're going to continue to kind of emphasize that not all media creation is made the same. We're going to definitely emphasize a lot of things that are techniques that are used in the filmmaking world, how it correlates to the camera, what kind of cameras we're going to be using, and what kind of lights we're going to be using. And we're going to be able to hopefully be able to leave you guys with a little bit of information that you guys can take back to your classrooms. And then at the end of all of this, I want to pitch to you guys some future endeavors that we're going to be hosting here at NGP, and as well as a future organization that we're getting off of the ground. So I have a little more information on that here in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John and take it from there.
Wow. Okay. To start with, we have, which camera? Okay, am I still on the? Okay.
We're on wide.
We have two cameras set up, and DJ, if you can give me a shot of one then the other. Okay. This is our Red Dragon. Okay, and this is a Panasonic F100. Can we? Panasonic F100. Okay. Now, one is $1,000 camera. The other is about $50,000 camera, maybe. Yeah, I haven't priced one in a while, but it's very expensive. You can do a lot of what you're trying to do with $1,000 camera. As long as you can have manual focus, manual iris, and can set the shutter angle, shutter speed. That's basically all you need in a camera. The thing about between the cameras, one is great for your classroom. The other is great if you're going to make a movie and you're going to try to sell it. You have to have a certain level of quality to be able to broadcast. And so that's what the $50,000 camera is going to get you, but you don't need that for your classrooms. So the key thing, though, you can get with your $1,000 camera It's the lighting. Lighting makes a shot. Right now, you can see, Trevor, you'll sit down.
Uh-oh.
Got hung up? Whoop,
Yep.
Disconnected.
Just the ComTech.
We've got what we refer to in the industry as very flat, very ugly lighting. This is not what you want for your film. So basically this is one light. Tristan, could you, basically it's one light. Are we getting this, DJ? Okay, this is one light, and then pan back over, centered right over the top of our cameras. It's a very hard light. This is a Fresnel, 1K baby Fresnel tungsten, okay? So it's a very hard, I've got some diffusion on it just to help soften it just a little. That's what this is. We call this diffusion. This is what the grips do. And I want to back up just a little bit and say the lighting is between the camera, the lights, and then grip. As Trevor mentioned, gripping is shaping the light, okay? So all three of those things work together to produce your image. So I'm going to show you what happens if you take, and we're going to talk a little bit just about lighting now. If you take the light and I start walking it around, get it over from the top of the cameras. One thing about lighting, it is purely subjective, okay? In other words, one person's taste in lighting may not be another person's taste in lighting. So I just lost my train of thought. I apologize.
No, you're fine. I actually wanted to go ahead and point out really quickly to people. John mentioned we're using tungsten lights right now. You know, that's an old school phrase, tungsten, using a tungsten filament bulb in order to be able to expose our image here. Most of you guys in your classrooms are probably moving farther and far away from that with the advent of LED technology. What do we know about LEDs? They're very energy friendly, they're efficient, they're bright, and they're relatively inexpensive. And so we'll get into that here in the segment later today, but we're starting with tungsten lighting because it is the tool that is still very much kind of the backbone of lighting in our industry. And if you can shape these very hot, very bright lights, you can make a gorgeous image. This is how Hollywood has made movies, you know, for 50, 60 years now, since tungsten lighting, you know, came around. So we want you guys to kind of put into perspective of why we're using these, and then we'll get into some of the other tools of the trade, so you guys can familiarize yourselves with a little both. Also, I want to let you guys know, if you have any questions, feel free to use that chat. Type it in, and our producer will let us know that you got a question, and we'll do our best to answer it. So do not hesitate to ask anything. We're here to serve you guys.
Okay. So now what I've done is I've moved our light. We actually call this our key light, okay? It's the primary light. Right now we're a single light source. So it's still very moody, okay? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a fill light. What I've done is I have a light over here, a small light on the ground, and I've got a bounce set up. So I'm going to add a fill light. Now you can start to see what's happening on this side of his face.
This is your traditional, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the term three-point lighting. This is a traditional three-point lighting setup, but as you're going to see in just a moment, it's not
two of the three lights.
It's two of the three lights, but yes.
So this is a grip tool here. This is black wrap. Right now, what's happening is we're getting a lot of light just from the back of the light. So I'm just going to cover this up. One of the tools we use in the trade called black wrap, the indispensable tool of trade. It's basically black aluminum foil. It's something that won't burn. It's black, so it's not reflective, and it helps. Like I said, it's indispensable. You can use it for everything. So
John, now
we've got our fill light. I'm going to waste, technical term, some of that light so it's not quite as bright. Now we're going to start getting into some moodiness of the light. I can also waste the light at the light itself. So now let's see what our image looks like. Let's go ahead and go back to one of the, and the reason I'm looking over here is I have a monitor that I can look and see what you are seeing now. So now we're starting to see what the moodiness. Now, he was talking about the 3-point lighting. We got 2 of our 3 points up. We have our key light and our fill light, okay? Now, there's a thing called the backlights. That's the 3rd light in our 3-point lighting. Now, what that 3rd light does, it actually takes and separates the image from the background. Right now, we have a very 2-dimensional image. We have Trevor, we have the backdrop back here, it all blends together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in a 3rd light. Now see what happens? We start to separate him from our background. It creates this edge around his head, his arms, his shoulders. And I'll do an on-off here so you can see what it's doing. That's off. And then back on. Now, gripping starts to shape light, okay? Now we're gonna create a scene. And so I even have a little prop back here. We have a lamp. So we're gonna add this lamp in. Okay, so now we have a practical lamp. Where am I at? Hello. We have a practical lamp as part of the background. Okay. Did I hear somebody with a question or something?
No, I think you heard DJ cough.
Okay. All right. So gripping is starting to shape the light. Okay. Right now I've got my key light is bleeding all over the lamp back here. So I'm going to take what's called a flag. This is a solid flag. And I'm actually going to cut some light off of this. So it's not bleeding all over the background. It's not bleeding all over our practical lamp because it's not the image that we're wanting right now. Okay. So I'm going to take what's this flag and a C-stand, and I'm going to start shaping this light right here.
John, as you do that, I'll get that for you.
Thank you.
As you do that, if you could explain a little bit, Tristan, if you could pan over and show our 1K over here. Our 1K, when I say that, we're referring to the wattage, the amount of power that's actually going through that light. And so we're talking about 1,000 watts, right?
1,000 watt light.
Yeah, 1,000 watt light. So that's a 1K there. So we can gauge the intensity relatively based on the amount of electricity that's pumping through it. Now, that's obviously there's definitely some caveats to that. With the advent of more efficient lighting tools we have available, not all lights are created equal. But for this purpose, we know 1K here is going to be our most powerful light that we're using for this setup right now. And as we stage each light here, it gets it's less powerful with each light that we use. Now, over there, Tristan, if you could pan over and show that light that's up there. There we go. So on our 1K, there is a piece of paper on it, right? Seems pretty silly to throw a piece of paper on there. But John, why did you do that? What happens? We're talking about shaping light. What happens? Why do we have a tool like that on there right there?
Let me show what happens when it take it off. That way, you'll see the difference. That's with it off.
Ew.
This is one. Okay. What it does, it softens the light. It makes it not quite as hard of a source. So I'm going to soften the light. And there's many tools that we have to soften the light. You can use a larger piece of diffusion on a frame, which gives a larger source of light and makes it softer. In fact, let me talk about that real quick. Okay, sorry. It got really bright for Trevor. Look at the hard shadows we have on his face, okay? So it's very bright on this side, dark on this side. We have a very sharp line of bright to dark. So if I take and put some diffusion in front of this and turn it into a larger source, and this is all the stuff you don't see behind the scenes that make and light a scene in a movie. Mm-hmm. This is exactly how it's done, just on a grander scale.
If you've ever wondered why you buy an expensive camera for your school and it still kind of looks like a home movie at the end of the day, it's because of these techniques and these other tools that you're utilizing with the camera. A camera is only roughly a third of the equation here in terms of cinematography. You know, I want you guys to take into account here. Notice that the lighting, as John is continuing to shape it here, none of the lighting is kind of directly on me. I see a lot of students, and you know, particularly in the broadcast world, you put a light right on top of the camera, make sure that the subject is exposed, and that's kind of it. That works, but when John uses the term flat lighting, why is an image flat? Well, a camera is only dealing with a two-dimensional space. And so as he was talking about, you know, texturing in this backlight back here to separate me from the background, it goes even farther for that for even our key and our fill lights here. My face has definition, it has texture. And if I were to bring a light directly in front of my face, think of it like a sundial. Where is it going to be casting those shadows? If it is directly on me, there's going to be no shadow being cast. There's no definition, what's the word? Contrast to my face. So we space these lights out strategically to create an artificial feeling of depth. And you guys may not realize this as viewers and consumers of media. You've been trained to watch movies your entire life. And if something looks off to you, it's often because one of these techniques is probably missing. We're missing some kind of texture, some kind of depth. So that's why we have the lights in the positions that we do now. That may have been a really bad explanation. I should have left it to you.
No, actually, that was very good. So what I've been doing is I took and added a 4x frame of diffusion in front of our hard light. And I left the diffusion that we had on the fixture itself. I'm creating a larger source, which now you're starting to see it get some wrap around his face. So we don't have that harshness anymore. He's starting to look sexy, okay? Yeah. So
that's why I do this.
Basically, we've got a 3-point lighting setup now. We've got a key light, a fill light, and our backlight, okay? I added this flag to kill a little bit of the light, the hard light that's hitting the lamp, because I didn't like the way that it looked, purely subjective. Again, it's just one of those things. I didn't like the way that the key light looked on this. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a light to it's what we call a special. And it's just to bring up a little bit of light on this, okay? So I've got a light. Can we see it with all the stuff that's getting around? I know our set's kind of getting crowded. So I've got a little light I'm gonna turn on, okay? And it's just a special to bring up our background light, our practical.
I'm sure you guys are familiar. Anytime you've probably watched, you know, it's tough. It's so hard for me because I want to interact with you. But you know, where are my Alexander Hamilton fans at, right? Like, where are my Hamilton fans? You know, now that's a stage show, but imagine you're watching a movie that features, you know, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. We've all seen this scene where you've got some candlelight writer putting things together. What we're doing here is we're using this practical light right here that's kind of a part of our set decoration, our set dressing. And what John has done is using this special, emphasizing this light, we've created this look to make it seem like the lighting in our room is naturally emanating from this source right here. And so that is a filmmaking trope. That's a filmmaking technique of trying to figure out where your source lighting is coming from and how to make it seem realistic.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to, if it's not realistic, actually the subconscious mind, and I forget the technical term right now, but it'll confuse the brain because it doesn't look, and so then you put the subconscious into kind of a stress. And so you're adding something into your viewers that you don't intentionally want to create. Now, I forget the technical term, it'll come to me later. So we've added a special on this. I've got this where I had lighting control on the light itself is actually through something called scrims. Where am I at? Okay. We have these little wire scrims that we can drop into the light that control the light. This is for the tungsten light, and it's different when you get into LED. They're normally dimmable. The reason you don't put dimmers on tungsten lights is when you dim it, it changes what they call the color temperature. It decreases the voltage to the light, so the light becomes warmer or redder, okay? So right now we have the lights balanced to our camera for 3200 degrees Kelvin, white balanced. And so that makes it look white. So we're gonna use scrims to adjust the light. You can use the scrim on the light itself, these wire scrims. We also have what they call a grip scrim.
And while John's getting that prepped for you, I kind of want to just reiterate something, or not even reiterate, but bring up, for all intents and purposes, though John is a key grip and a gaffer, he's the person that is shaping the light, bringing the light to the set. This is what a cinematographer does. A cinematographer is not merely just a camera operator. They're not somebody that just pushes record on the button and points it to where it goes. A cinematographer knows all of these tools as well, and they figure out how to paint an image with the lighting, with the shadows. That is, again, why all three of these departments, these three roles, are so integral, and why they work together to create really one part, one aspect of a film. So John is as much today, he's our director of photography.
Yeah, actually filling all three roles today. Yeah. So we've got the grip scrim, we got the wire scrim. We can get into later when the colors actually mean something. And it's a little more than what we can add into a short video to get into that description. But this takes off a full stop of light. The red does, and same with the red wire scrim. It's a full stop of light. That way, whenever the DP, director of photography, asks for it to be half the light value, you can drop in a red scrim, which drops one stop, which is half the light value. So I'm going to actually slow the lamp. We go back to, I guess, our red dragon.
Mm-hmm. So okay. Now we're back over here on this, $50,000 to $100,000 piece of equipment. One thing that's about cinema cameras is they're kind of like Legos now. It's about all of the accessories that build into it. So it's really, as you build a camera package, and we'll get into that at another time about camera packages and what they do. But yeah, this is a cinema standard piece of equipment that we've got on me right now.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop a red scrim. I'm gonna knock half of the light value out. This is an apple box. And it's gonna help me crawl up so I can, this is a grip item. And this is so I can crawl up and get into this light.
So John is using this particularly color coordinated piece of equipment to drop in there. And that's because he knows that it's been standardized. So he knows exactly what it's going to do in terms of dropping the intensity of the light. He knows what it's going to look like as soon as it goes in there. It's not so much a guessing game.
Okay, that is what we call a double down. That's a red scrim is called a double. And so it's taking one full stop out of that light. So you can see the change before and after. Let's see if I can give you a before and after here, on, off. You have to excuse me, the light has gotten very hot. That's the downside to tungsten lights.
Tungsten lights are very hot and they're very inefficient. It's one reason why you're starting to see them kind of go away.
And I unfortunately grabbed my fingerless gloves this morning. And so that is the scrim out. And then I drop the scrim back in. You can see what it does to our little special back here. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that camera, lighting, and grip all go together. And one of the jobs of the DP is to use lighting, like the director uses action to concentrate where the viewer is going to look. The DP's job is to use lighting and camera movements to control where the viewer looks, okay? You can make a brighter spot. The eye is naturally drawn to the brightest object in the room. So when you're editing and then you cut from one scene to the next, the first thing that the eye is going to go to is the brightest object in the room. If there is a brightest object. If it's all just kind of flat lit, the eye is just scanning to try to find what's there. But so you'll use lighting to direct what you want your viewers to see. I added the special on the lamp because I want the viewers to not only see Trevor, I want them to pick up the object in the background. Maybe your scene has something to do. Someone's going to grab the lamp and smack somebody with it. So I want to bring attention to it. This is how I've done it with this special light. Otherwise, I could have just turned it off and it just kind of goes into the background and we just got a little spot there. Okay. So in lighting, the camera, gaffing, lighting, and your grip all work together to make to direct the viewer's eyes. Okay, that makes sense? So you can also do this with focus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this light and I'm going to make everything a lot dimmer. Okay, I'm going to take the intensities of the lights down quite a bit. So right now, if you look, Trevor, if we go back to the dragon, okay, Trevor's in focus. Well, and our backlight is slightly getting soft. I hadn't intended for that to happen. Let's see if I can get I'm going to pinch down a little bit. Let's go back to our monitor so I can see what's going on here. There's a function between your iris. I know it's getting darker, but I'm trying to get the iris pinched down so I can get everything in focus.
And John, that's kind of what I was going to say is, guys, notice how we're adjusting everything for the most part, with the exception of what's happening right now, without touching the camera. We had our settings dialed in to a specific ISO. We had our aperture set to a specific number. And we had our shutter angle at a specific shutter angle. Notice I said shutter angle, not shutter speed, because that's not something that we necessarily deal with in cinematography. That's very much a DSLR type thing. And so that's something that we'll get into later about kind of the differences between using a DSLR for media making versus kind of a regular film and video camera. It's because we're dialing in to the specs of what this broadcast, how it should look, and then also trying to get a general exposure for the look that we're trying to achieve here. So he's dialing down the iris to make things look a little darker, but notice what he's done is we've brought this right back here into focus, creating what we call depth of field. And John, I'll let you take it from there.
Okay. So what I've tried to do is bring Trevor and the lamp in the background both into focus, okay? I had to do that because how I did that is I pinched the iris down, basically making it like a pinhole camera, which makes everything within a certain focal length in focus. So your depth of field becomes very large. And just real quickly, focal length is controlled by the lens, and that's from the focal plane, which is the camera, out to the object or out a distance. That is your focal length. That's controlled by the lens on the camera. Your depth of field is the area from the minimum focal length to the maximum focal length. That's the area that is within that focal length that's in focus. Now, I've thoroughly confused you, I'm sure.
This is your f-stops, guys.
It's your f-stop, okay? So lighting and your f-stop can both work together to direct the eye using a narrower depth of field. If you're out in the sun and you're having to pinch the iris down, go to a really high f-stop, f32, f64, because you're in the bright sunlight, you'll notice everything from right in front of the lens to infinity is in focus, okay? Because you basically have a pinhole camera. You've pinched the iris down, your f-stop, down to such a small pinhole, basically, everything has become in focus. Okay?
This is what your iPhone does. This is what your GoPro. You know, think of your GoPro footage, your action footage. It's designed to make sure that all of that is in focus because it's trying to capture action, so to speak. So you're right. It's like a pinhole camera.
It's like a pinhole camera.
Yep.
Well, the thing about a GoPro, though, that makes it so that everything's in focus is it's basically a wide-angle lens.
Yep.
Your depth of field is controlled by three things. The focal length of the lens, which is the wide angle versus a narrow angle. Wider angle lenses tend to be a larger depth of field, okay? Your f-stop, your iris, he just showed me the time and I have 30 more minutes to go. I'm just about talked out. And so your f-stop controls your depth of field, okay? And the third thing has just escaped me. It'll come to me. I have total recall, but it'll take a little bit. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to adjust the lighting and the f-stop so we can keep Trevor in focus, but make the background go soft. So your focus now is on the object that's in focus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the iris up, and I'm going to narrow my depth of field so that we are full open right now. And so I'm going to drop in a red scrim.
So
Actually, I'm going to drop in probably, where are we at? I'm going to drop in 2 red scrims. There's one. You notice the light changed, went half the value. That's the second one, half the value again. Okay. I'm going to waste or drop in a red scrim, which is a double, making it half the light value. And in scrims, we have not only what we call a double, it's a red, which halves the light value. We also have a green scrim, which is what we call a single, and it's a half of a stop, so a quarter of the light value. So you can actually get pretty precise in layering these up. And like I've got a double, I have another double, and I have a single. So I can actually take half the light again, and then a quarter of the light. So I could really layer this up, and I can really get precise. And this is working with tungsten lights. When you get into your LEDs, then you've got a dial on the back, and it's very simple. And we'll get one of those out here in a second to show you that. So I'm going to drop in 2 doubles.
And again, when he says stop, you know, it's just like you're stopping down with your camera. You're stopping down the light to match kind of the aperture that we're desiring with the image here. The two work in tandem. So if you have an aperture of 5.6, you want to make sure that your general exposure is kind of in that same range. So when you take a light over there that at full exposure is maybe like at an f11 or maybe even f like 22, when John starts adding those scrims in, he knows how much aperture he's dropping in order to get us back into that range. So he's doing the same thing right over here.
Yeah, and I couldn't get the light value down enough by just dropping scrims in. So what I did is I actually backed the light off or bounce. Which one are we on right now? Let's go to Tristan. I guess Tristan could see this. if you'll notice, I actually took, Tristan, can you pan over, and are we here? So I actually backed this light off, or bounce, like backing a light off. This is now our light source, even though that's our light, this is our light source. And I backed it off. And whenever you, there's actually a mathematical formula. So whenever you back a light off, if you double the distance, you quarter the light value. And that's, gets into far more than what we can get into today.
These two things right here, by the way, this tin foil, this black wrap, and that white piece of foam over there are two of the most crucial, important filmmaking tools that you guys can have at your disposal. They're incredibly affordable, inexpensive, and it's something that should be in every filmmaker's toolkit. So go to Hobby Lobby, get you some foam, order some black wrap online. We'll provide some resources on where you guys can find that equipment. But this will turn your production, take your shot and turn it into $1 million, and this thing will cost you, a few dollars to make.
And this is what we're talking about. This is just basically some, what they call beadboard polystyrene, beadboard. They use it for insulation. You can get that at Home Depot, Hobby Lobby, and if you're shooting outdoors, you can take and run around with this, and it can be a handheld light source that you can bounce light back onto your subject. I just don't have enough light to bounce right now, but you might be able to see a little bit of what's, there. It's on, it's off, it's on. You can see that it's working a little bit of light back into the downside of his face. So these, and then the black wrap is something, I don't know that you can buy it at Hobby Lobby, but you can find it on eBay. You can find it at Film Tools. NGP sells it.
Yep.
It is an invaluable tool because you don't have to have these production lights. You can have a drop light. In fact, I had a class one time I taught where I lit it using production lights.
Warehouse lights.
Yeah. Well, the actual production lights made movie lights.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then I stripped those out, and then I had the class bring in their shop lights, drop lights, whatever they could find, and I relit the scene using their lights, black wrap, and some other tools, white foam core. I went by a fabric shop and picked up some material that I could use to help diffuse the light. I picked up some tracing paper that I could use as diffusion, things that you can buy off the shelf that are very inexpensive, but yet you can use to manipulate and shape and control the light. So it doesn't have to be this kind of lights. It's easier to do with this kind of light, okay? Just make sure if you do that, make sure whatever you're using is not flammable and won't melt on whatever light you put it on. Clothespins, okay? We call them C47s or pegs, okay? It's what I'm using to hold a lot of what the black wrap on. You can see I've got it on the light, clipping the light. The thing about it, it doesn't melt. It'll burn eventually, but you'll smell it long before it catches on fire. So just think safety when you're using some of this stuff. So here I've decreased my light. Let's go back to the red dragon. So now I'm wide open. I've decreased my light value. All I want to accept our special light. And I have to get my pliers back out because this thing is really hot. I'm going to drop another double. I've already got all the doubles in it, okay? So I'm going to back this light off.
John is physically moving one of the lights right now.
Out of the, I'm using that formula of backing up double the distance and you quarter the light. Kind of readjust my black wrap that I've got on the light to, basically it's become a snoot for the people in the theater, or top hat.
It's like a cone for the light, makes it directional, almost like a spotlight. One thing that I want to kind of point out, so we have the luxury here of having a little bit of space to move some of these lights. There are things that John can do within reason to kind of achieve that same effect of what he did by moving the light farther away. Let's say we're in a smaller room. We just use a different tool, potentially even a different light, a smaller light to achieve what he just did.
So you can see now that, and I got to get close to the monitor so that I can see. Trevor's in focus. I hope you all can see this. Trevor's in focus, and now our lamp has gotten softer or less in focus. It is now outside of our focal length of our lens, outside of our depth of field. So it's gotten soft. So this is how you use lighting along with your focal length and your depth of field to control what the viewer concentrates on. Because the person doesn't necessarily want to look at something that's out of focus. Their eye is drawn to what's in focus. So this is how you control where your viewer looks. And it gives a little more interest to the image. So, and this can be achieved on both the expensive camera and let's go to the F100, and let's see if I can open its iris up a little bit. There we go. Okay, it's really dark. I'm going to see if I can. Oh, that's our zoom. Where's our?
It's that little radial dial right there. Yeah.
That may be wide open. No, going the wrong way.
So now I'm disappearing, and now we're coming back. So one of the disadvantages of using a camera like this and using the lens that comes with this camera is, DJ, are they able to see the histogram and the information and stuff that's kind of up on the monitor? Are they able to see the info? Okay.
For the AF100, they should be able to see the f-stop, the shutter, what the focal length is. It's at 1.78 meters right now. So basically, both cameras you can see as much information as I can.
So 5, John, is as wide as that lens can open.
Yeah, it's wide open right now.
It's wide open. So
I'd have to add more light back to get what I'm trying to achieve with the Red Dragon.
Yep.
So, but if you go back to the Red Dragon, you can kind of see what I was trying to attempt. Okay. So that's the relationship between lighting intensity, the f-stop in the camera, depth of field, trying to concentrate what you want your viewer to see in the image, okay? So I can also, we talked about direct light and diffusion. I could also, just like I did the fill light, I can also make the key light a bounce light. So, and there's a different light we're gonna use for that, where I used a Fresnel hard light for Trevor. I'm going to swap this out for a soft light, what we call an open face light. Okay, our key light's going away, we're going dark. I'm going to back this out.
So we're going to be using a relatively similar light here. It just has, it's just built a little differently.
There's a different light. I'm going to show you. This is one where it has no lens in the light. It's an open face light. You can actually, you can see in here, you can see the globe. So there's no lens between the globe or the lamp and the light that's going to come out. And so it's basically just, it's a very hard light this way. It doesn't have a lens to focus it. It's focused through a reflector in the background. So what I'm going to do is, this is the kind of light you use either with, you can put a chimera on this, but I'm going to use it as a bounce. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our diffusion out. I've moved the 1K Fresnel.
This light here is also 1K. This is a 1,000 watt light like we were using over there as our key. Has the same amount of electricity coursing through it, but it's a punchier light. It's a less controlled light from the get-go. So it's going to create, even though it's the same intensity, it's going to create a different look here. Yeah, just different tools of the trade. DJ, does anybody have any questions? Have you seen anything come through? Okay. Feel free to ask those questions. We'll get into it a little more here moving forward, and especially towards the end. None of this is designed to overwhelm you guys. I understand that most of you don't have these tools at your disposal at your school. Don't worry, about that. That's kind of where we're going to be able to come in and help. We'll get into that here in a little bit. So feel free to ask those questions. We are going to do our best to kind of standardize this information across the board, so you guys can take it back to your classrooms, have a little bit better understanding of what it takes to create not just media, but create attractive media. And that's what filmmaking is all about. It is very much an art. Even though what we're doing is very technical, very hot, very sweaty, this is the business.
This is the business. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Tips for cheaper softboxes that don't produce much light.
Tips for cheaper softboxes that don't produce much light. So these are going to be probably the stuff that you find on like Amazon Basics that probably have like either the LED screw-in bulbs or just traditional soft wattage tungsten bulbs. There's only so much that you can do with a light that only produces so much light. So again, we're talking about, so if you're using a softbox, you're going to be using that baffle, or you're going to be using that grid that kind of comes with it. You can either remove that baffle, you can remove that grid, but what is the point of a softbox? It is to create soft light. So yes, you've increased the intensity of the light, but you've also taken away some of the aesthetics of it. This is where we're talking about using a inexpensive piece of equipment like that and shaping it with other tools available. So potentially using something like this, removing that baffle, removing that grid from the light, using a bounce instead to bounce that light off of it, backing the light farther away, and using that intense light and just at a distance.
Okay, and it just got bright.
I'm back.
And we're back. And so this is an open face light into a bounce card. Okay, let's go back to the Red Dragon. And I keep looking over here because our monitor's over there. I'm trying to see what you're seeing. And there's actually a delay, so whenever I make any adjustments, I have to wait just a moment to see what really happened.
So it's a little warm, so it's got a boot.
Okay, we're having some, there we go.
There we are. We're doing the best we can over here.
So this is the open face light. Now, it's a little more difficult to control, but it does have the same control means as the other light. I do have a scrim bag full of scrims. Again, doubles, singles, the green ones. I can drop them in to lower the intensity of the light. There it is, went half the light value down. I'm gonna drop another double in. That's a quarter of the original light value. You can see it dropping every time I go down. Now, the one thing about an open source with a bounce like this, it does get harder to start controlling the light as far as where it's going. Right now, the light's spilling all over the background. It's spilling all over our special. So I'd have to bring another flag back in and have to work it so that I can take it off of our special, but I keep it on Trevor. I'd have to add, like we did before, add the little special light back on our lamp. Basically what you're doing, I had an instructor many years ago. What you're doing is you're painting with light, okay? And he always told me, he said, there's no such thing as pretty light, there's only pretty shadows. I tend to fall back on that. Just throwing a light on something doesn't make it look pretty. It's the shadows that create in the image. I mean, you know what Trevor looked like before, and now we're creating some shadows. I mean, like I said, he's starting to look pretty good here now.
It's about time.
So, any questions?
Yeah,
I've thrown a lot of information out there.
Questions in 10 minutes. Okay, very good.
Okay.
How much time do we have left?
11 minutes.
11 minutes.
Very good.
So 11 minutes before the 10 minutes, or just 11 minutes total?
So we'll ask questions like whenever we're done.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Very good.
In 10 minutes. Okay.
Trevor and John, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
And it's from Matt. He asked tips for cheaper soft boxes that don't produce much light.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with, you know, some of these inexpensive tools that you'll find, these inexpensive soft boxes. You know, keep in mind, again, that why is it called a soft box? It is to have that baffle on front, or that grid, this little thing of diffusion to soften the light that's on there. Oftentimes they use like little LED screw-in bulbs, kind of the same stuff that you'll find at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, or a fluorescent. And yeah, they're not very intense. So there's a couple of things that you can do. You can either remove that diffusion from it, but you're removing the softness of the soft box. Yes, you've cast more intensity, but you're going to be creating harsher light, like we've seen with some of the other things. So we can either push the light farther away, or we can use other tools such as like these pieces of foam, these bounces over here, shaping light, using white walls, turning your light around, bouncing it off of a wall, using it off of a floor. That's really, you can only do so much with equipment like that, but there are other things to do for sure. Yes.
Would a higher watt flow also?
Depends. Yes, it absolutely would. Make sure that you read what the light can handle.
The fixture itself.
Yeah, what the fixture itself can handle.
What the UL rating is on it.
Yep.
You can't exceed that wattage.
Yep.
Otherwise
Don't exceed the wattage. Otherwise, you can have
fire hazard.
you're gonna have a smoke machine very quickly.
Yeah.
Anything's a smoke machine if you use it wrong. So anyway, very, very good question. Very good questions.
So far what we've talked about here are tungsten lights. I want to show real quick what's called an HMI. And the thing about tungsten lights is the light value, or the light color temperature, is there's a whole discussion behind that. It's the color temperature is 3200. It's actually a very, what we call, warm light. Okay, so I'm going to bring in something that's called an HMI.
It's a warm light and look, even though it is a cooler temperature.
Yeah, it's a warm light and look. It has nothing to do with the actual physical temperature when you touch it. It's still a hot light when you touch it.
It's very hot, yes.
But it has to do with the color of the light that's coming out of it. So what I've got here is what's called an HMI, and it's actually an arc light. There's no physical element within the globe or the lamp. There's no physical winding. Okay. It's actually an arc. There are two contacts in there, which you have an arc that goes between it, and it's in a gas of helium. I believe it's argon, and it's
mercury.
And mercury.
Yes.
And so that's what gives it the look, the color temperature of the light, the physical light itself. These are typically very expensive lights. So I'm going to strike this. It takes a little bit to warm up because it does have an arc. So I'm going to, there we go. Have a strike. That's what we call when we turn a light on, it's striking the light. Okay. As soon as it comes up, I'm going to pan off the tungsten open face light, and I'm going to pan this light in so you can actually see the difference. This, if we keep our color balance or color temperature balance at 3200 degrees on the cameras, this is going to look very blue. Okay. And so what we would have to do is do a white balance to.
Step away from the light.
Am I buzzing?
Yeah, you're buzzing.
Okay, sorry about that. I was picking up some RF on my wireless headset from the RF that the light itself was giving off. So I'm backing up just a little bit. I'm not sure what you missed, but this light is a much cooler light, and in the sense that the color temperature of the light is a higher value, or bluer. Bluer is cooler. Warmer is redder. Okay. And so this is basically sunlight color temperature. Okay. This is basically the quality of light that you would get from the sun as far as the color. So I'm going to pan off the tungsten light, or turn the tungsten light off. And I'm going to buzz a little bit again as I step back up to this light. I apologize. So I'm going to pan in this light. Now, if you look, he's blue. Okay, so that's the difference between the tungsten and the HMI. It's just the color temperature of one light versus the color temperature of the. Again, this light is basically the color temperature of sunlight, which is roughly 6,200 degrees upwards to 10,000 degrees.
Yes.
And that nothing to do with physical temperature. And if you're curious, it has to do with when you heat up what they call a black body, and when you heat that black body up to a physical temperature of 10,000 degrees, it's the light that it gives off. That's what they call the color temperature, okay? So in other words, like firelight, that's a very warm color temperature. It's redder. So the redder the color temperature is, the lower the value. Firelight's about 2,800 degrees Kelvin. Tungsten lights like these we're using in here are 3,200 degrees Kelvin. The bluer the light, the colder it gets, okay, the higher in value it goes. The 10,000 degrees is a very blue light. So this is another kind of a light that we use in our industry, okay? Now, I'm going to bring in an LED. And the great thing about LEDs, now this is actually, again, this has actually got a lens in it, okay? So it's like the Fresnel, but the good thing, this is what we call a PAR. It's a parabolic aluminized reflector. So the lens is set in a reflector, and then we have lenses that we can change out inside this. So unlike the Fresnel light that we used earlier, where it has a fixed lens in it, this one we actually swap out lenses, okay? So I'm gonna shut it off, and I'm gonna bring in, I'll leave it on, I'm gonna bring in an LED.
One thing that I want to point out with HMI is this, typically there's kind of this, there is this belief that HMIs are more powerful lights. And for all intents and purposes, they kind of are. So this light that we have on right here, it's called a Joker Bug. It's a Joker Bug 200, and meaning the 200 is 200 watts, right? 200 watt light. Not all lights are created the same here. So a 200 watt tungsten light is going to be very, very dim, very, very soft, not nearly have the intensity that we have here. HMIs are, for all intents and purposes, more efficient at, utilizing the energy and transferring it into direct light versus direct heat, though these lights get very, very hot. This is where we talk about energy efficiency and going from like a tungsten light to an HMI to LEDs that are incredibly efficient. And basically, why are they so efficient? Well, they're converting almost all of the energy that's coursing through it into direct light versus being transferred into heat. So there's some physics elements here. And that's one thing that I love about filmmaking. If anybody's ever wondered, why is it the Academy of Arts and Sciences? It's because there's a massive amount of science and mathematics that go into creating these images. So keep that in mind in your classroom, that the arts very much here are, as much as they are art, there is much physics, science, mathematics, and being able to utilize all of those ideas, all of those forms of education into a concept to create an image such as this.
What I have set up here is an LED, okay? And the great thing about LEDs nowadays is it has the dimmer on it. So I can bring up the intensity. That's at the bottom. I'm coming full up. That's a bright light. So I have from 100%, I can take this down. Oh.
These are what I imagine a lot of the schools, a lot of you guys are probably going to be investing in. You may already have LEDs now, and what I imagine you'll probably be adding in the future. We're at our 1 hour mark, or is that 1 minute left? 1 minute left. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So just real quickly on the LED is when you're looking for an LED, you want something that's dimmable, and you would like it to be 100% dimmable from 0 to 100%. And also, you want to be able to change the color temperature. That's a great thing about LEDs. Look at this. I'm making him warm again, okay? We go back to our, So he's warm again. I can make him real warm. He's down there about firelight warm now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can take him up to sunlight cold. Okay, he's a really high Kelvin temperature right now, very blue. So that's one thing great about LEDs is they have this variable color temperature. So it makes it so that if you're trying to mix, say you're doing something early in the morning and you've got a warm sun coming up, you can use an LED and change the color temperature to match the sun. So if you're using the sunlight maybe as your key light, and then you're using the LED as your fill light. So I think we're about out of time. Trevor, do you want to get into the FEIO
I
just a little
do.
bit?
I do. So again, I hope you guys came away with something from this. I hope it didn't bore you. This is obviously a lot of fun for us, and so we're incredibly appreciative for you guys tuning in today. And before we get into some questions, I just want to remind you that none of this was designed to overwhelm you by any means. And for those that this was a bit of review, I'm sure you guys, some of you already probably knew some of this stuff, which is wonderful. We're using, the tools of the trade that you're going to see in the industry on a daily basis. You step onto a movie set, these are the pieces of gear that they have at their disposal. I know that that's not something that a lot of you guys have access to right now. This is where my organization this one, Tristan, hi, sorry. This is where NGP has been really fortunate to kind of co-sponsor and begin this endeavor of outreach and education. And this is where we've seen things like our workshops, which I know some of you guys definitely attended last year. The music video that we shot is now out, so check that out. But yeah, we've done this all under the umbrella of NGP. We are excited to announce a new sector that we are moving into, and actually with the support of NGP and many others within the community. Mr. Shriock right here, one of our board members, we're excited to announce the Film Education Institute of Oklahoma, the FEIO. This will be the first nonprofit in our state that is entirely dedicated to film education. We are at your disposal, at your service to, one, educate the educators, to help you guys have a better understanding of media creation and what you can do in the digital age, and as well as providing opportunities for your students who might be interested in joining our film industry, which is rapidly growing in this state. So I'm very excited to be moving forward with that. We do have some events to announce directly for you guys, and I'll be sending this information out shortly. On December 7th, December 5th, Saturday, December 5th, we'll be hosting our very first educators clinic. Now, we understand that it is the age of COVID, and we want to take all precautions necessary to make sure that we can practice safe learning in a safe environment. So spots will be extremely limited for the time being, but we want to offer in-hand training experience for educators. Everything that you guys saw today in 1 hour, and it was a lot of information, I'm sure, will be broken down into 3 separate 5-hour clinics where you guys will begin with the basics of the camera, understanding what it means to have a cinematography camera, a cinema camera, the differences between that and a DSLR camera or a video camera. Then moving on to lighting, understanding the lighting tools that we have at our disposal, and then finally shaping that light, because all of those 3 things are integral in order to create attractive images. We will be doing our best to standardize lists of equipment for your classrooms. We will do our best to be able to help bring that equipment into your classrooms, bringing instructors from all across the state that have professional experience, working with you guys in the future to help develop and cultivate a growing film industry. So we're going to have so many resources at your disposal very, very soon. Again, the first thing coming up in December, those clinics. The first clinic will be free to attend, the camera clinic. And so I'll be able to provide more information for you guys there. But that's what we've got coming up. And I know I've met with some of you in the past about what can we do to provide new curriculum and standardizing equipment. That is the direction that we're heading. So we'll take your questions now, and I'm excited to move on with that with you guys.
Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute if you do. I wanted to, while you're thinking of your questions, I wanted to thank Trevor and John for sharing today. Awesome information, amazing for someone who is not an IT person to see the difference in the lighting. It was really interesting. Also, if you will share your information with me, we have a weekly newsletter that we send out to our instructors. And so whenever you're having one of these clinics, if you'll let us know, we would be happy to put that in there for you so that they know about those sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I will definitely make sure that all you guys have my contact information. I will be stepping away from NGP. NGP will still be a part of the organization, but I will be moving into the Film Education Institute of Oklahoma as the executive director. So the two are going to be, I will hand out my new contact information, and just so there's not confusion, I'm probably explaining this terribly, NGP will still definitely very much be a part. We're working hand in hand with the organization, with the company. So yes, question, DJ.
Are you planning anything more advanced from the workshop? Sorry, I read that wrong. Are you planning anything more advanced than the workshops you discussed later?
Yes, we are. So we will be, hopefully very soon, we're going to be monitoring the situation with COVID-19 very, very closely. And so for those of you that participated in our workshop a year ago, that was for the students, we definitely will, it is on the horizon to get back to that. We just want to make sure that we can do so as safely as possible. So opportunities for your students will be coming down the pipeline, so we'll make sure to keep you guys updated there. We'll also be providing virtual curriculums, instructional videos for you guys to take back to your classroom this year, so you can go ahead and get started and get the ball rolling. As for our education clinics, as for our Teach the Teachers, so to speak, we are going to begin with these 3 basics right here of the basics of camera for cinematography, lighting for cinematography, and gripping for cinematography. That's the core that we're going to be working off of. And we'll probably run through a cycle of those for, the next, at least through the spring. And then we will grow further into more advanced clinics for advanced cinematography. So being able to utilize camera movement, I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably investing in like gimbal systems and dollies. There's a lot of new tools and technologies that are out there. So we will definitely be utilizing things like that. We'll be focusing on LED technology and lighting with LEDs. There's so many cool tools that are out there right now that we want to make sure that you guys get your hands on them and know how to use them and be able to take them back to your classroom. So they will become more advanced as we progress.
Do we need to sign up for FEIO or send you our contact information?
So yes, please send me your contact information, because we will have essentially a mailing list. We don't have any kind of official membership right now. And I don't know if that's on the horizon, but we definitely will want to make sure that you guys are on our contact list, so you guys will get all of the information moving down. We will, as we begin to implement a curriculum, we're currently shopping around some different hosting abilities. Like I'm sure you guys are familiar with Canvas or either Moodle. We're looking at where we're going to start building that curriculum to give you guys access to that. So I just basically am going to need your information to be able to start sending that curriculum, sending that information out. So no official membership, no official sign up. Just please pass along your information so we can have you guys be a part of the organization.
Are there any other questions? Yeah. They're asking where they should send that, their contact information to.
Jackie, if you want to, because you have, if you could collect their information, or if you want them to send it directly to me, I'm happy to just pass along my email to you and have it sent out to them, and they can respond back. And so we can do it that way.
Sure.
Whatever's easiest for you guys. So yeah, I will send out my email to Jackie, and she will pass along the information to you guys. And that way I can add you guys to my contact list. And we're very much a grassroots organization. We're doing this, we're building this from the ground up. And so we encourage feedback, ideas. You know, we're at your service. We want to work for you guys. So any you know, trouble that you have in your classroom, in implementing the ideas that we have to grow our film industry, please let me know, and we'll do the best that we can to try to accommodate and make it work for all of you guys.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that for you. And as I said, thank you so very much. Any last minute questions? Okay, again, thank you. I also want to thank our instructors who took time to come and watch live today. We appreciate that very much. And thank you to John and to Trevor. We appreciate it and hope to work with you in the future.
Thank you guys so much. It was an absolute pleasure to do this today, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future.